So these protests began with this currency crash and shops in Tehran closing their doors. Can you explain how this unrest has grown since then, both geographically but also in scope? It's now about much more than the value of the rial, isn't it?
Yes, as you noted, this is the first large protest we've seen in Iran in years. The last, of course, most famously being the 2022 Woman Life Freedom Uprising, where we saw all 31 provinces in Iran have lit up. We are not seeing that scale of numbers in terms of provinces, but we are seeing many towns and cities joining, and that these protests have been growing in the past few days. And as you know, this isn't really about economic grievances, it's so much more. It's about systemic mismanagement, corruption, and repression, and have been part of the angry sentiment that Iranians have had over the years. It came to head in 2022, and now it's come to head again because many Iranians believe that their problems are lie in the clerical establishment. And this is why you're hearing anti-regime chants. It's because people do not want this regime. They're out risking their lives, knowing full well that in 2022, crimes against humanity were committed by the Islamic Republic, according to United Nations fact-finding mission.
Yeah, so we're seeing, as you say, these calls for an entire regime change. In the eyes of the protesters, what are the key issues that the clerical establishment has failed to address?
Well, as I've noted, it's very basic things. This is a resource-rich country. Their economy's collapsing thanks to the awful inflation. They've had power outages. There's concerns about Tehran running out of water in recent weeks. And a lot of these issues are just basic. The Iranians want to live and they feel that they're not living and they feel that much of the world is progressing, that they're being left behind. They see that the elites are living their best lives in North Tehran, as we noted during the 12-day war. At the first day that the Israelis were taking out top military brass, they were all living in penthouses in Tehran. And so these are reminders of the hypocrisy of the clerical establishment, that ordinary Iranians are struggling to get by. And of course, there's the repression. There's been the highest executions in Iran in well over a decade. In the year 2025 alone, there have been over 2,000. And now with these protests ongoing, you noted that there were several deaths. There have been at least seven. And we're hearing that there have been at least 119 arrests. Now, these numbers might seem small now, but they will grow very quickly. And one of the tools that the clerical establishment uses to silence dissent is to push for executions, because they think that by sending that will send a message to the protesters that they too could be on death row.
Some protesters have been calling for the return of Iran's exiled crown prince, Reza Pahlavi. Why is his name being thrown around?
Well, as you noted, Reza Pahlavi's definitely been part of some of the chants in the country. It's because there's a nostalgia for life pre-1979. And the former crown prince has definitely made more of a presence in the past years. He's been around for a long time, but because of the situation on the ground, that some Iranians feel that he's the only one that could lead the country. And so this is why you're hearing these more nostalgic chants like "Long live the Shah" or a call for his return. So it's not really entirely surprising given the circumstances that the clerical establishment has made for 46 years.
And you've mentioned that these are the most violent protests that we've seen since 2022 and 23. The Women Life Freedom marches in Iran, they were met with some really brutal methods of suppression, and hundreds of people died. We've heard about these several deaths in this week's protests. You say up to 7. Will Iran's security forces continue escalating the crackdown if the protests continue?
Absolutely. It's what they do best, and they're in a very fragile situation. We have to remember that this is a historically high, there's historically high anti-regime sentiment against the clerical establishment. And we've had two examples of protest, the current one and the previous one. We've had a 12-day war with Israel. And the clerical establishment has been in a state of paralysis. And if it feels that it is in this fragile situation, which it really is, it's going to wield all its powers to keep the system, the Nizam as they call it, in power. And so it wouldn't surprise me that you would see another round of crimes against humanity committed by the Islamic Republic, because it's what they do. And it's not what they've done only in Iran. They've also done it in places like Syria when they propped up the brutal dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad for over a decade since the 2011 uprising.